And G. Bush is back at it again, exposing these local Cleveland Browns insiders who have nothing but pure hate for Shedeur Sanders. Man, he went in and exposed the truth. Guys with histories, the Josh Gordons, the Johnny Manziel, the Deshaun Watson. They took on that while he had cases going on, and this and that. But you despise Shedeur Sanders so much, you want to go and get Brendan Sorsby, who has known gambling issues and all of this other stuff. He's in rehab, but you claim you didn't want to deal with this type of stuff anymore. Oh, as long as it means Shedeur Sanders won't be the quarterback, you're willing to deal with anything.
Addiction under control, and you want to bring him in to a city that's hyper-focused on everything quarterback. You want to bring him into a city that's hyper-focused on calling the Browns a dumpster fire. You want to bring him into a city where most of the reporters have a field day of just going and finding the most negative story they can find. You want to bring that guy in, put him in a media storm, and then do what? You don't even know if he's going to be ready to play. You don't even know if the NCAA is going to reinstate him. And by the way, guys, listen, at some point, it borderlines irresponsible. And at some point, you guys can't be believing this stuff. I don't know, as a person that covers football, it's turning into the National Enquirer or the tabloids at this point, because I think it's very funny that these guys are going to sit up on a soapbox and talk about Myles Garrett speeding tickets. But you got a guy who is sitting out because he's under investigation for gambling on his own team.
Stop lying about him. G. Bush calls out Browns media. Something is breaking inside Cleveland Browns media right now, and it's not just another opinion war. It's turning into a full exposure of how narratives are built, repeated, and defended depending on who the subject is. And when G. Bush steps into it, he doesn't soften anything. He points directly at the contradictions people keep ignoring. But the deeper this goes, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just about Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson. It's about how Cleveland football stories are being shaped before reality even settles in. Cleveland Browns conversations have never been calm, but this time it feels different. The QB situation is no longer just a football discussion. It has turned into a split-screen argument across media voices, analysts, and fan reactions. On one side, there's the ongoing weight of Deshaun Watson's situation, still influencing how the roster is evaluated. On another side, rookie quarterbacks and developmental options are being discussed as if they are instant answers. And then, in the middle of it all, speculation about future moves keeps adding more fuel to an already unstable conversation. But what G. Bush highlights is not just disagreement, it's inconsistency. Because the same situation is being interpreted in completely different ways depending on who is talking. One analyst calls it risk management. Another calls it roster mismanagement. One voice demands patience. Another demands urgency. So what is the truth supposed to be when the standard keeps changing? That's where the frustration begins to build. Not just for fans, but for anyone trying to understand what the actual direction of the Browns even is. The deeper G. Bush goes, the more the contradictions start stacking up. Because Browns history is always part of the conversation. Johnny Manziel's downfall, Josh Gordon's suspensions, and Deshaun Watson's controversial entry into Cleveland. Every one of those names carries weight. Every one of them is used as evidence depending on the argument being made. But here's where things start to clash. When it's convenient, those examples are used as warnings, proof that the Browns should avoid certain risks at all costs. But in other discussions, similar concerns are brushed aside when a different quarterback option is being promoted. Same history, different interpretation, and that inconsistency is exactly what G. Bush calls out. Because if the standard is discipline, character, or stability, then it has to apply across the board, not selectively, not depending on which narrative fits the moment. But in real-time NFL discourse, that consistency doesn't always exist. Instead, it shifts. And that shift is what fans are starting to notice more than ever. At some point, the conversation stops being about multiple quarterbacks and starts orbiting one name, Shedeur Sanders. Not because he is currently leading an NFL offense, not because he has a defined pro resume yet, but because of what he represents in the debate before anything is proven. Supporters point to confidence, leadership, and production. They see a quarterback who brings attention and belief. Critics, on the other hand, focus on readiness, system transition, and whether Cleveland is the right environment for that kind of spotlight early. But G. Bush's concern is not just about evaluation. It's about escalation. Because the conversation around Sanders is already loud before anything meaningful has even happened at the NFL level. And once that happens, every opinion starts becoming amplified, repeated, and defended like fact. That's when a prospect stops being just a player profile and becomes a narrative battlefield. And in Cleveland, where pressure already exists at quarterback, that kind of spotlight doesn't fade easily. It builds. While the media debates outside the building grow louder, the actual quarterback situation inside Cleveland remains layered and uncertain. Deshaun Watson is still part of the roster conversation, carrying both expectations and unresolved questions about long-term direction. At the same time, rookie quarterbacks are being integrated into development cycles, each one carrying hope but also uncertainty, and every single name connected to the position instantly becomes part of a larger debate. There is no neutral discussion anymore. Every QB move is analyzed like it decides the franchise future. Every roster decision is turned into a referendum on the front office. Every rumor becomes a talking point before it becomes reality. And that is what creates the chaos. Because instead of building stability around the quarterback room, the conversation keeps recycling pressure faster than the team can settle into structure. And in that environment, even patience starts to feel like a controversial opinion. This is where G. Bush's argument hits its strongest point. The issue is no longer disagreement, it's narrative speed. Opinions form quickly, spread instantly, and then start shaping how every future decision is interpreted. Once a narrative takes hold, everything after it gets filtered through that lens. A good performance becomes expected. A bad moment becomes proof. A neutral development becomes ignored, and slowly, evaluation gets replaced by storyline reinforcement. That's how certain players become symbols instead of subjects. That's how debates stop being about football details and start becoming about identity arguments. And once that shift happens, reversing it becomes extremely difficult. Because now people aren't just reacting to performance. They're reacting to the story they've already accepted. At the center of everything is a deeper issue than quarterback selection. It's Cleveland's identity under constant pressure. Every decision is judged instantly. Every move is magnified. Every player is placed into a narrative before they've even fully stepped into their role. And because of that, stability becomes harder to build with each passing cycle. G. Bush's frustration reflects that exhaustion, not just with disagreement, but with repetition. The same debates, the same contradictions, the same shifting standards. And while talent, draft picks, and roster changes continue to evolve, the environment around them remains the same, loud, reactive, and divided. That is the real problem sitting underneath the surface. Not just who plays quarterback, but how long anyone gets before becoming a debate instead of a development. So the question isn't just about Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, or any other quarterback name in the conversation. It's about whether Cleveland can ever break out of the cycle where every QB discussion becomes a controversy before it even becomes a reality. Is this really about football anymore? Or has the narrative already taken control of the game before it's played? If you want more deep NFL breakdowns like this, exposing media narratives, QB controversies, and behind-the-scenes tension across the league, make sure to subscribe, like, and stay locked in. Because in Cleveland, the story is never just football.